Hi, this is Di, and I've been hiding something from you, and I am ready to share it. Well, not really hiding it. Hiding it in plain sight? Okay, you keep asking about it. It's that. You keep asking about this amplifier, and I am ready to talk about it. I'm going to share some of that with you today. So I guess it is time that we talked about the elephant in the room. It's actually a cab and a head that I have acquired through the years, and well, I think I got it for a steal is what happened. And so I am going to tell you how I acquired this bass amp and head and what it does. I am not the only bass player in the family. My brother-in-law also plays bass, and he for many years was a gigging bass player. He was in a band called, I can't remember the name of the band. And they used this amp and head, and at the time when he was playing, I actually loaned him this Music Master bass, and this was his backup bass for his gigs. If something went wrong with his main bass, he had this as his backup. Well, I had an away gig, one for which I was going to need an amp and a head, and I, in conversation, mentioned it to my brother-in-law that I needed to borrow a setup or rent it or something from him, and he was actually in the market to sell his because he wasn't gigging anymore. And so he sold it to me for a steal, and I was shocked to see these are still up for sale. Like, you can totally go to Musician's Friend or Amazon and order what has not been dramatically changed, this amp and this cab. So this is a common setup that bass players use, and I was lucky enough to get it and very spoiled, and I will not part with it. My son has wanted to gig with it, and I've told him he has to make a deposit because should my brother-in-law ever arrive with a check in hand, he will be getting his amp back. I just, I feel like I'm caretaking it right now, and so it is there if I need it for a gig. Fortunately, since I'm gigging at church and there's already an amp on stage, I haven't needed it. Also, you have to worry about thieves, so I would have to haul it in and out every week, which would be pretty arduous. It is heavy. I have a funny story about this. I had bought it for my brother-in-law and took it to the away gig. The gig was at Great Wolf Lodge. I don't know if you guys have one in the town where you live. If you're not from the States, you might not be familiar, but it is a hotel built with a swimming pool complex next to it. It's got some small restaurants. It is aimed at kids. Kids are running everywhere, and I was there for a conference, and we were the band playing in the conference. Well, there was a game demo that they did, showing a game that they would do. They would use some sort of gun and shoot a hot dog across the room, and it would go on to a person who was wearing a breastplate with nails sticking out of it, and so then the hot dog would stick to the nails, and it was supposed to be hilarious. And I guess they got really excited. They were supposed to blow the hot dogs over at 10 psi, and instead they shot them at 40 psi. I don't know if you're familiar with what a hot dog does at 40 psi, but I found out it bursts into a million pieces. Tiny little speck-sized pieces of hot dog. Wet hot dog everywhere. And that is what happened to the stage and blew onto my Ampeg and my Hartke. I had just acquired them, so I had a major freak out. Like, how dare you? So I was like climbing up on stage and picking chunks of hot dog out of the amp. I don't know if you've ever tried to clean up wet hot dog. For the record, when it dries, it's really easy, but when it's wet, it smears. So if you ever need to clean up 40 psi hot dog pieces, just remember to wait till it dries. Yeah, I was pretty freaked out. My new-to-me amp, and oh my gosh, pieces everywhere. So let's demo the amp for you. Now, here is a known issue with these old Hartkes. They do have a fan problem. The fan is so loud. It was not a problem on stage because I was in a full room. There were about 1,000 people there, and so you really didn't hear it from the stage to the audience. The fan wasn't an issue, but that's something that my son's been working on, is locating a fan to replace it. You can go on YouTube and look up the procedure for replacing the fan on these amps because they do make a noise. Newer fans don't. This is called a graphic equalizer because it looks like a graph. So you can do the smiley face, which is popular, or you can do the frowny face, which is popular. Let's try the frowny face. Smiley face. Let's try the two. Shakes the house. Let's try the high pass. I think I want a little of both. I like them both. Nice. Oh. Get rid of the equalizer? Add the equalizer. Let's try it straight across. Oh, kind of straight. Nice! I think I like the frowny face. I really like that contour, man. You don't hardly need the volume knob with that. Let's talk about specs. Front panel controls feature both active and passive 1/4-inch inputs, independent tube and solid-state preamps, each with volume controls for mixing the warm tone of the tuba preamp with the clear piano-like tone of the solid-state preamp, a super smooth compressor with a clip light and a threshold control, 10-band graphic equalizer with lighted slider, bass and treble contour controls, and master volume control. The rear panel provides a studio quality XLR balance direct out with ground lift and pre-post EQ switch and an effects loop with blend control. Includes handles and corner protectors, 2-rack space ready design. Alright, let's talk about the specs of the cabinet. The Ampeg SVT-410HLF enclosure gives you plenty of volume and clean low end. This 4x10-inch cabinet has the same speakers and 1-inch horn as the SVT-410HE with 2-inch coils and 30-ounce magnets. But the cabinet itself is tuned differently. It's deeper and has a bottom port that results in a better low-end response, down to 28 Hz. The cabinet features heavy-duty recessed handles, an industrial-strength grip bar, heavy-duty wheels. Skid rails are placed on the back of the enclosure to protect it while loading it in and out of venues. The speak-on and 1/4-inch jacks are wired in parallel, allowing easy daisy chaining from one speaker to another. Each of the jacks may be used as an input or a through connection. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you soon. God bless.